What the fuck am I gonna do with the 100 megapixels? Recently, Fujifilm announced their GFX 100 RF, a compact point and shoot medium format 100 megapixel camera that is taking the photography world by storm, some would say. As someone who works with Fujifilm to review their products and give my personal opinion on how things work and give my honest feedback on whether or not I can see something progressing in the future or maybe needing a few little tweaks here and there to become something fantastic, I have to say that whenever I first heard about the news, I was super excited and then skeptical, and then once again super excited, and as of right now, more than anything, just confused. For clarification, I will be getting a GFX 100 RF in my hands sometime in the near future to be able to spend an extended period of time with it. And even though that is part of an agreement that I will eventually go into with Fujifilm, I have to say that there are a few things about the camera that not only do I just not understand when it comes to the actual user base that this will be for, but even more importantly, where does this take us next? When I first jumped on a call with a whole bunch of other creators for Fujifilm to announce the GFX 100 RF before they had their big announcement on, what was it, March 20th, Prague, something like that. I was talking to a buddy of mine who was also in these nice inner circles about how excited we were for the product. It's a 28mm effective field of view camera, f4 for light gathering, but it gives a depth of field-ish of around 2.4, 2.8. So a 28mm 2.8, which is a great focal length that a lot of people love. Fujifilm's GFX lineup always has amazing glass. Fujifilm, in just general, has some of the best glass in the game. And if you've never used a Fujifilm camera and haven't been able to experience how well they go about designing these optics, you are kind of missing out on, well, images from sensors and glass combinations that pack a punch that make you say, damn, this is great. And because you couple all of these great things about the GFX lineup with the fact that this camera is literally almost the same size as an X Pro 3, similar build concept, kind of, language as the X100 VI, and again, a small, tiny point and shoot that is dwarfed in comparison to the GFX 50R, which is the only other rangefinder style medium format camera from Fujifilm. This thing seems like it should have hit it out the park for me. But taking it back to that meeting with Fujifilm reps before the announcement on March 20th, there was one thing that was just in the back of my mind. What the fuck am I gonna do with the 100 megapixels? I am someone who sincerely does not get the megapixel hype train whatsoever. And I'm calling it a hype train for myself. For a lot of people, the 100 megapixels is gonna do you great. Whether it's for landscapes, whether you want to be able to blow up your images on billboards, misconception about that, but we can talk about that later. Whether you just want to print big in the most resolution possible, or to be able to take images and be able to crop in 90 different ways, this idea that the 100 megapixels is going to be your end-all be-all for a lot of people is justified. But for someone like me, it's just not there. I don't like working with large, gigantic ass files. Let me just go ahead and just start that off. And I would venture to say that a lot of people that have never worked with something over a 50 megapixel medium format sensor might feel the exact same way. They bog down your computer, specifically if they're not up to the latest specs whatsoever. Even my M1 MacBook Pro still has issues with high megapixel sensors like the GFX 100 II that Fujifilm loaned to me and I was able to take to Oakland and San Francisco whenever it was getting released. And yeah, the images are great. I love them. It's one of my favorite all-time cameras, but man, it took up a lot of space. It took up a lot of time to edit. And more importantly, I don't really notice the difference in resolution because I don't crop. And that's one of the biggest things. If you're not doing straight up portraits on people and you don't have to adjust all these details and shooting in super dynamic situations, something like a street photography, something like a topography, something like landscapes, to where honestly, the more megapixels are better, but you're not necessarily trying to crop out everything to focus on one little tiny piece. I have to say that 100 megapixels is huge. If this camera was 50 megapixels, I honestly think that I would have been one of the first ones to pre-order. As soon as I heard about the camera and as soon as they took me through the specs, the usage, the test photos, talked about the body, talked about every single thing about it, I would have been one of the first people to sign up to get this camera. But at 100 megapixels, I have to think about the space that I have on my computer, the space that I have on my iPad that I edit on, the space that I have on my network drives that I'm dropping all this stuff onto. And of course, might even have to think about updating my iPad or my computer to be able to achieve the goals that I want to achieve in a not bogged down, takes forever time, because yeah, Lightroom, Capture One, whatever you're using is having a hard time molding out these images and changing them the way you want to change them. I may sound like I'm complaining to some people, but as someone who, when I go and shoot street and I'm on a roll, can shoot anywhere from, if it's rolls of film, 4 to 5 rolls, 200 to 300 images on digital. I'm someone who, when I go out and I'm shooting landscapes, I don't worry about how much film I'm using, how many digital shots I'm taking, because I don't mind doing the extra work there. I want to capture the image. If I'm inspired, I want to go and create. I don't want to have to think about how much space is on a card, how much space is on my drives, how much space is on my iPad. I don't want to have to think about if things are going to be bogged down, choppy, being able to work. And this may seem like a nitpick, but this is just an honest thing that I'm having to conversate about. When it comes to 100 megapixel sensors, who is the main demographic for this? And I think this speaks to something bigger in photography. A lot of camera companies, Fujifilm not excluded, and again, I have a good relationship with Fujifilm, but I'm not an ambassador and I'm not a fanboy of any company. Fujifilm included in this, they're not excluded from this critique. They can't give us really anything else. I mean, they can update autofocus, they can maybe add in some AI features, they can maybe do this or that with a grip and hand out a new lens and stuff like that, but that takes a lot of research and development. And so one of the ways that they've been able to, in my opinion, effectively, cheaply, and efficiently been able to roll out something new in these camera bodies that look the same, that have the same features, that are using the exact same glass, and et cetera, is just put out things that are higher megapixel. And a lot of these cameras don't even have to be their flagship cameras to get this. I think of Canon with, I think it's the EOS R7 or R something, R8. One of those has like a high megapixel sensor, 30 something. Fujifilm with the X-T50 has the exact same sensor as their X-T5 and X-H2, and the X-H line is supposed to be a flagship, yada, 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 yada. It's all about the megapixel count. But I just keep thinking, why wasn't this a 50 megapixel camera? This isn't even getting into the discussion of the people that just wanted a GFX 50R Mark II. Could have been in the same body, just with an updated sensor, maybe IBIS, and updated processing power so it could have better autofocus and just more film simulations. It wasn't a hard ask. And I'm not complaining about the GFX 100 RF. I think it's a great camera and an excellent move forward. And there will be a lot of people that have this camera that are going to be doing press, travel press, that are going to be doing documentary for sports specifically. I can see this as a camera that someone has on a baseline, especially with the improvements Fujifilm has made to autofocus. I could just see this a baseline or sideline, really getting in the nitty gritty whenever it comes to team photography. I get this camera for certain people. Do I like this medium format camera in theory? And am I excited to test it out? 1000% absolutely. I'm not going to bullshit you about that. I definitely am. But do I like the implementation of it? Specifically the fact that there was never even a thought about a 50 megapixel sensor? No, because a lot of people aren't like me that are paying for 16 terabytes of storage for photo and video. A lot of people aren't like me that are paying for offset storage in either cloud or portable storage to be able to do things when they're on assignment and they're traveling, so that they can actually be able to process these files, review these files, edit these files, and get them out as soon as possible. I'm in a small demographic of people that are paid for their work, commissioned for their work, have their prints bought, have their stuff in galleries, etc., to where if I say this camera for myself is a good buy, I could actually justify it 1000% with something other than I just want it for the cropping power. But there are a lot of people that don't have that same justification luxury, specifically whenever you have to buy more storage. My computer's over here, which is why I'm pointing over here. More storage or another computer to be able to process these images. And I want to double down on this by saying a 50 megapixel version of this camera would be an easier way to be able to step into the medium format game, specifically because of the space that is being saved. My assumption is that this camera is going to be fantastic. I haven't personally watched any reviews of it because I don't want my mind to be skewed by anyone else's review, but there are a lot of questions that I have, specifically questions for consumers who I don't want going into debt for something that may be overkill or may not be worth their time based on how they actually take photos. With all that being said, I'm going to go back to working on all this lighting. I'm having a lot of fun. My videos have changed a lot recently, different sets, different areas, different things. I've just been trying to practice lighting during this off season for myself from the documentary side, doing more commercial work, more commercial photography, but I really want to nail some things down. So I'm trying different things, you know, with these key lights, whatever, whatnot, small rig gear everywhere, purchased by me. And yeah, it's just having a fun time. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. Hopefully no Fuji fanboys get offended and get mad at me in the comments, but even if you do, who gives a fuck? Take it like, but take it. Have a good one.